Hey, everybody. Welcome to the MOBB Mentality podcast. I am super excited to have our guest, Rachel Lavin, with us today. And we are going to talk about all things health, wellness, mindset, which is totally up my alley. And I love always getting new perspectives on things. So, welcome. We are very excited that you're here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. That was a cool intro, by the way. I like that. That was neat.
Thank you. I'm like, it's about time for an updated one since I had my littlest one. She just turned 14 months old. So it has definitely been a journey over this past year.
I can imagine.
That's where this is extra special. I feel like the older that I actually get, the more that healthy living, lifestyle, mindset seems actually so much more important and significant than I froze. There we go. It seems so much more it seems so much more significant than it even did when I was in my 20s.
Mm.
Would you say that over the course of time that like your perception of health and wellness has evolved?
Absolutely. I mean, I think part of it is getting older and wiser, and we realize it's like not 100% about the aesthetic anymore. It's like, I want to be able to get out of bed by myself. I want to be able to, you know, continue to do my daily activities by myself for as long as I can. And that's where I think the shift in a lot of our mindset comes from.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. It's like it's all very aesthetic. I feel like early on, teens, early 20s, and then maybe it's like, oh, I need to look good to find somebody. And then real life actually hits. It's like, I got to keep up with kids. I have to be able to get myself out of bed. Do I want people to have to take care of me as I get older? Or do I want to be able to actually take care of myself? So I feel like a lot of that heavy and like what really matters when it comes to health and mindset, like as you get into 30s, 40s plus, like it really begins to shift.
Yeah.
Would you tell me a little bit? So you are an author of a book. It's called the Doughnut Diaries. And would you just tell us like what inspired that book, a little bit about your own story, like how we got here today?
Of course. The inspiration was that this journey was literally my life for 40 plus years, where I was dieting, losing, gaining, all the while for, the past 24 years. I've been a personal trainer. So I've been immersed in the fitness industry for as long as I can remember. And just all that swirling around in my own heart, my own head, and just punishing myself all the time, trying to help other women feel good and strong in their body. It was just a lot. It was a lot. And when I turned 40, I had finally achieved that, we're going to put in air quotes, that perfect body, right? I was 40 years old. I was a size 0. And you think that, oh, I'm happy, happy. And I wasn't. I was miserable. I didn't feel like I knew myself. I didn't feel like I was in the right place. Nothing felt good. And that's when I decided, you know what, it's time to go ahead and just like shut out all the crap that goes on outside and in your head and deal with my trauma, because that's what's fueling this. That's what's making me feel like I'm not good enough, that my body still isn't the right body. And I really kind of just, like I said, isolated a little bit in the sense where I just wanted to figure out who I was and what I wanted for myself in the future. And when I was kind of at home with everybody else in 2020, I said, you know what, I'm going to put this in a book, because I want people, number one, to stop feeling like they're alone. Because I feel like so many of us go through all this and we feel it's just me. Nobody else experiences what I do. And that's just not true. It may be in different ways, but all women have had something about their body. And I just wanted people to know they weren't alone. So now I'm hoping that my book is used as a tool to inspire you to open up your mind and your heart, that you don't have to do this to yourself anymore.
That's really impactful, because you're right. It's like we all have our own story. And I think from a very young age, wherever that may come from, stemming from family or even social media now. It's like we have these body image issues and really a lot of trauma that can come along with that through personal experiences, shared experiences, maybe some type of family trauma that's went on that impacts really your mindset and how you think about your body. So a couple of really key things that you said that I just feel like are so worth diving into that would be really impactful for a lot of people is this topic of trauma. It's a hard topic to talk about. If you don't mind sharing, what was some of your own personal trauma that you discovered when you started going inward that was leading to you not really loving this perfect body that you had?
Yeah, I think that it was the women in my life at a very young age I just saw that didn't respect themselves, didn't love themselves, and was always chasing something out there to make their heart happy.
Yeah,
And growing up seeing that, and then of course as a young woman repeating those behaviors, it's no wonder why I felt so empty. And I just remember going to a school in California where I I'm almost afraid to say this, but like the majority of the students were just like, cute little white girls. And
mhm,
I always looked different. My body was different. I was developing earlier and I was called out on that. Like, Rachel's
yeah,
already got boobs and blah, blah, blah. And so being forced to be conscious of my body at 11 is when I remember starting to worry about it. And
yeah,
that never left because I wasn't given the tools at the time to deal with that. And so now when I had to figure that out for myself at 40 years old, I get it now. I get the
mhm,
correlation of why so many young girls feel this way. And I'm the more I'm in this space, I realize, what, you're never going to take that experience away from little girls, but what we can do is we can make it safe for them to talk about it so they don't have
mhm,
to internalize that and then live with it and just keep building their character upon that, which is a total lie, you know?
mhm. Yep, just a complete, like, false narrative, and so I work with some young girls, and it's it's very interesting to see how, what they're battling with from, a mental standpoint, from body image and what they see and how they're treated, and there's so much pressure out there from early on, and then I really do believe that's, like, we see that follow into adulthood, and
Mm.
it's like there's a lot of unresolved things, and it's just finding power in your own story and also knowing that it's like there's different ways of seeing things.
Yes.
And it's like just because your body developed early doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you.
No, and I'm not alone, but I didn't know
Mhm.
that then.
Yeah.
I didn't know that then.
Yeah. That's so powerful. What did you figure out? Like as you started, was this something that you started figuring out before you wrote your book? Or do you feel like you learned things as you were actually writing your book?
No, I definitely put the time in before
Okay.
I wrote my book. Like, I think so. 2020, I was what? God, time is just like kind of gotten away from me. Like, I just turned 52, so there's that barometer, right? At 40 is when I kind of had this spiritual awakening. So, I definitely put in the work then. I
Mhm.
mean, it's never ending, right? We're always learning about ourselves, but I dove pretty hardcore into like my past and like wanted to deal with the reason why I kept choosing the wrong man and why I never felt comfortable in my
Okay.
own skin and why I didn't know how to be alone. Like for me, that was a huge, huge, huge epiphany. So I think that having gone through all of this and then even later deciding to write my book, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that my book did not come across as a self-help book, right? It's
Okay.
not a diet, it's not a meal plan, it's just me telling you my story in hopes that you don't feel alone.
Yeah. What is whenever you turn 40, like when this big a spiritual awakening happened, like, do you remember that moment? Was it like, oh, like what is going on? I need to do some work. Like, what hit you?
Yeah, it was the day I had a big old 40th birthday party. It was like the day or two after. And I was at work, and I just remember this uncontrollable sob was just like, okay, I need to go sit by myself for a second. And I just remember it was, I'm sure you have cried so hard that it was just like tears. There was no sound. There was no, it was just like uncontrollable. And that was happening for me, but it was peaceful at the same time. It was like, okay, my body is literally binging and purging these negative feelings that I've had about myself my whole life. And one of the things that I can recall in that moment, it was like all the things that I never believed about myself. Like I was a good person, I was a smart person, I was funny, I was beautiful, like capable, like all those things all the way up until 40, I didn't believe about myself. It's like looking at that reflection of this new 40-year-old woman. It's like, yes, you are. You are all those things. You just need to figure out how to put that forth, you know? And I realized that all this stuff that I was constantly surrounding myself with was getting in the way of that. And to learn how to be quiet when you've got like that constant chatter going on in your mind, I can't even tell you how like freeing that is. And you know, here we are like 12 years later, I've learned how to like quell that. I mean, it still happens. Like, you know, that chatter goes on in your head, like blah, blah, blah. But to learn how to breathe and to learn how to be in your own space and to learn how to be at peace is a skill that I highly recommend to everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm pretty excited. Like you hit me on a day that this morning I just wrapped up a course I've been working on for. I feel like it took me, of course, entirely too long to get it out with 2 little kids, but it's like, it happened. It got done today. And thank you. And it's highlighting on so many of these things that you just talked about because it's realizing and becoming aware. It's like, what is this voice, this like unsettling that you have, these self-critical thoughts, and then being able to do that work to discover what is that inner peace, come in connection with yourself and become aware,
Mm-hmm.
because I really do believe it's like that's what makes you successful. It's like that's what allowed you to write your book. That's what allowed you to love your body and believe that you're fully capable and confident now. And that's pretty special. So, what was, whenever you did that, you're like, okay, for you personally, you talk about coming in contact and like being able to go in and be quiet. What does that practice look like for you personally?
Personally, it's like I tried all the things, right? I tried meditation, I tried this, and I just have to be real with myself. And I'm a Sagittarius through and through. And like I can do something for like 2 weeks and then I'm like, ah, forget it.
Okay.
So I think the important thing for me to know is to remind myself what that feels like.
Okay.
And so getting back there may look different each time. But the one thing that I have learned how to do is like breathe, you know, just to get quiet and to ask for what I need. I think that was something I just didn't know how to do before.
Mhm.
So if I need some alone time, it's like I tell my partner, like, beat it, get out of the apartment. I just need to be quiet. And I think that the consistency in me going to the gym, for me, that's my therapy. It feels good. I feel good after. And so that's a part of it too. I think that just reminding myself that I am grateful and happy every single day, it does help.
Ugh, such a practice. You said
Mhm.
that. It's like it's a process and it's so much of a practice that if you don't do those things for yourself daily, they don't get done.
Right.
What so when we talk about loving your body, body love, that is a concept that you talk about. Like, what does that even mean?
I think that we are being inundated because now it's having a moment, right? Body positivity,
Mhm.
body inclusivity is having its moment finally. But as per usual, we humans get hung up or lost in the words as opposed to the actions.
Mhm.
And I think that I'm so sorry, I'm gonna cough right
No, you're fine.
now. I think it's so important to understand that if you don't love everything from the inside out, you can be as beautiful as you want, as thin as you want. It doesn't matter. And I am a walking example of that. if I did not take the time to learn about myself and to love myself and to trust my own body, we would not be having this conversation. My book would not exist. I would not be in a peaceful place because I'd still be immersed in diet culture. I'd still be doing the same old, dieting, losing, getting off the diet, gaining. I would just, it's a vicious circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that I only wish and hope and pray for every single woman that they can have this experience. It's so time consuming. It really is.
Being caught in that mentality of like of the diet and the yo-yo and lose and gain.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
What does that shift even look like? Because I do believe that's almost a default nowadays is like this instant gratification. What's the next quick fix? And even for moms now, it's like, oh, just go get a mommy makeover. Just go get a mommy makeover of, you go in and you have some sculpting or, whatever it looks like done in a day. And like, that's actually going to fix something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, you're fine.
Ooh. Sorry, something got stuck in my throat.
Hey, like that's actually what I love about this. I'm like, we're just living real life over here, real humans having talking really big, important things. So it's that I do believe, like I said, I agree with you. It's a vicious cycle looking at things from a diet, instant gratification, this instant results mentality. And it's like, how do we get to the process of escaping this cycle? Like, what's some of the steps that women even need to take?
Well, the first thing is because we're so ingrained and immersed in it, you have to recognize that you're in it. You have to, even if you think it's just your lifestyle and you're so happy living on kale and chicken, you have to look at that. That's diet culture. And I always ask people when I work with them, it's like, how many times a day do you think about food? How many times a day do you think about your body? And how many times a day do you think about how much you need to change your body? So
Yeah,
if it's more than once, if at all, you're stuck in diet culture.
really.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
that is the one thing I love to give people like a visual. There is not one day where from the moment I was awake to the time I was asleep did I not think constantly about those three things. And for me to have a day where I don't think about that at all is
Mm-hmm.
where the freedom comes in. And that means that I'm living my life for other things. I'm enjoying the conversations I'm having. I'm enjoying my girlfriends. I'm having a date night with my boyfriend and just being present, as we like to use that word. But
Mm-hmm.
it's true. If you are always in your head about, oh, I shouldn't eat that, or oh God, I'm going out to dinner tonight, so I'm not going to eat all day. Like and I still hear that from my girlfriends at my age, and I know that I can't get angry at them because that's their mentality. I get angry that the diet culture has forced us to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to save up for your calories. Like I hate that so much. And so for me, this is such a huge challenge because I have to be patient. Because again, I'm sure I was told all these things, but until I had my awakening and realized I wanted to be done with this, you couldn't tell me anything. You could not tell me anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I have to be patient with women. I have to understand that they're on their own journey. And I'm here to support you. I'm here to give you facts. I'm here to have conversations. But I know that at the end of the day, I can't change you until you're ready.
Yeah, that's that's a therapy statement right there. I'm like therapying people because that is so important because I tell people all the time, it's like you can be there to support and walk with you through it, but until you're a 10 out of 10 and ready to change, like you're not going to. And that's all there is to it. And so it's like you got to be there yourself. So I was like, oh, really? Like a little bit shocked of even it's like, okay, if you think about if you think about food, if you think about dieting, if you think about all these things any more than even like one time a day, you're stuck in that mentality. And so even for me personally, it's like I working out is therapeutic for me. And taking care of my body is just something in my mind, especially is something that's like it is part of my daily practice. If I don't do it, I am not well for anybody. And so where I feel like kind of like this push and pull is like when you say that for even for me personally, is like, okay, I don't feel like it's unhealthy, but I don't know if it's also because it's so ingrained into like this actually is my lifestyle that I'm not obsessive over it. Like it's not something that if I don't get it done, I'm not beating myself up over it, but I really crave it and I really need it. Like, is that a shift that you see happen with people, even that you work with, when they develop actually like a lifestyle instead of looking for a fix, I guess?
Yeah, and I didn't mean to make it seem like being conscious of taking care of
Mhm.
yourself. So let me kind of backtrack. But what you did say that made the difference was if I don't get to my workouts today, I don't punish myself.
Yeah.
So when you're immersed in that diet culture, I didn't go to the
Mhm.
gym today. Oh my God, I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to get fat. Like that's what happens when you're
Mhm.
still stuck in it. Or, oh my God, every time you take a bite of something, oh my God, I shouldn't be eating this. This is going to make my body bigger.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by always thinking about yourself, but having a healthy outlook on yourself. It's like, nope, 10 o'clock, that's my time to go to the gym.
Mhm.
Nothing is going to get in the way for the most part. I know life happens, but that is the time that you've carved out for yourself. It's on your calendar, it's in your mind, that's what you do. That's
Yeah.
perfectly, of course, of course. But it's the shame and the punishing that comes with it if that's accompanied with it. Did that clarify it for you?
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense, and
Okay.
that's because I like, being able to see that shift actually happen with people because I do think there's something just so special in that. It's like there's overcoming this thought of everything has to be perfect, and it's like embracing progress over perfection,
Mhm.
and it sounds like even all your own self-work was able to overcome all those that negative chatter, that negative self-talk of like, "I'm a bad person," and I'm a bad person because I ate bad instead of like, I didn't make the best choices today, and that's okay. We'll do better on the next meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What how do you ditch the diet mentality? Like, so that's something that how do you live now? How do you view food? How do you we know it's like you don't agree with the diet thought process, but it's like, what is it now? Like, what do you teach? What do you like? What do you live by?
So the one thing that I was one of those, I was always on a binge restrict cycle. That was my
Okay.
thing. And so when I realized that I had to heal my relationship with food, I go into it thinking I literally am only going to be able to eat kale and chicken for the rest of my life. And that was not, even when I was deep in dieting, it wasn't for me. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I wasn't nourished, you
Mhm.
know? And I think that once I stopped restricting and thinking that there's bad foods and good foods, it's just food. Food is my energy. Obviously, is do I feel better eating a whole diet of proteins and fish and veggies and carbs and desserts? Yes, of course I do. Is there, I don't even want to get into that choices thing because I think it still can be a lot for people. But for me, I just realized that I was giving food too much power.
Mhm.
And instead of viewing it, like I said, it's my energy source. It keeps me healthy. It keeps me energized. It keeps me thinking clearly.
Yes.
That's where I had to shift my change instead of, oh my God, carrots have too much sugar in them. Bananas have too much sugar in them. Like I used to believe that.
Mhm.
And I think that the most important thing when you're healing your relationship with food is that you tell yourself some pretty wacky stuff and to not even think to I mean, in the beginning it was a lot of work. I had to test foods on my body. I had to see what foods made me feel the best and foods that didn't make me feel good. But now that I've done that, I can just eat. And the only time I think about food is, hey, honey, what do you want for dinner tonight? Great, take it out of the freezer. That is literally the only time I put any thought into food is
Mhm.
what am I going to make for dinner tonight?
Yeah, that's great. That's so great to like to have that food freedom
Mm-hmm.
and it not be obsessive thinking about what did so from there, like whenever you let go of that control that food had over you, what did you see begin to transform in your life after that?
I had more energy for other things. I had more space in my mind for other things. And when I tell you that food and the way that I saw my body was consumed me all day, every day, I really am not exaggerating.
Mhm.
And I do want to point out to your listeners that for having that relationship, not only with food, but my body for 40 plus years, there are still days where I catch a glimpse of myself and I'm like, or that how easy it would be to go back and just cut out foods for a month and drop some weight and then, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my happiness and my freedom for an instant gratification, like you said, because
Mhm.
that's all it would be. That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah. What is that how do you help people find, like, their ideal and to develop a goal that's really relevant to them and realistic, but also not shorting themselves in any way?
Mhm. I use the word longevity a lot with my clients because that's what because my clientele is my age and older now.
Okay.
Um, and so it's like reminding them that why we do this. And it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to feel like I ate a little excessively this weekend. I mean, that's just normal and natural. But what I try to get them over the hump or past is the thought process of shaming themselves or feeling like they've completely derailed all the work we do. Because if you're consistent and you stick with your workouts 3, 4, 5 times a week, whatever you do that makes you feel
Yeah.
happy, and you're in tune with your body, meaning you can tell the difference between inflammation and weight gain. You can tell by your moods. You can tell by the way you're sleeping. You can tell by their interactions with the people that you have relationships with. All those signs are tells of how you're treating your body.
Mhm.
And if those things are nice and normal and even, then you're taking care of yourself. But if you're feeling like this up and down and moody and you're not sleeping well, I'm sure something is not right with your diet. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a nutritionist, but I've been doing this long enough to know that if things aren't right with my diet, it definitely affects my mood.
Well, definitely. Like I said, I think there's so many factors that do play a role in health and like this balanced living. And it's not just one piece of the puzzle. Like you said, so many things stress and connection and sleep and our food and our exercise. Like it's all the pieces of the puzzle. And it takes all the pieces in order to live healthy long term.
Right.
Yeah. What's some of like some wrap up thoughts? Like, what do you want to leave women with that are listening just as some source of like motivation, inspiration, no matter where they're at on their journey?
No matter where they're at, I love that because this is one thing that no matter where you are, you can do this and it will feel you'll feel different at the end of a week. So, what I tell people, it can be anyone, find a package of Post-its in your favorite color. I want you to write down something kind about yourself. It doesn't have to be a physical attribute. It can be, for me, like I said, I always believed that I was dumb, right? So I used to write on a Post-it, I am smart. And I said it out loud for a week straight, twice a day, at least before I went to bed. And just by continuing to say something that you not necessarily believe about yourself at the moment, but you want to, or that
Mhm.
you would like to improve on, to to give yourself that skill and that freedom to say it out loud is when one day you'll say, I am smart. And you'll be like, oh, I believe I am. And
Yeah.
I think that it's such an easy, simple tool,
Hmm.
but it's very hard for people to say nice things about themselves.
Yep.
And I love that when you start to kind of feel more confident and comfortable doing that, you then turn it into saying something kind about someone else.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like, you're bringing other people into this joyful, beautiful world that we live in, that so many people are just sad and miserable because they haven't been able to find their joy.
Hmm.
So that would be a little tip. Just find a package of Post-its. Mine are hot pink. And anytime I feel like I am needing a reboot or I need something that I don't believe about myself, I go back to that trick a lot.
That's beautiful. I love that technique. And one thing that is so important is that people go and like, you have to practice it with anything else. It's like, don't just buy the post-its, don't just write down the statement, but actually put it somewhere and say it a couple of times a day, because that is what develops that confidence in yourself. Like that is what's bringing it life.
Mhm.
Those post-its sitting in a drawer, or just post-its in a drawer.
Right. And just reading it doesn't do anything to your brain. You have to, I think a lot of us, whether we admit it or not, are kinetic learners where we have to touch, see, smell, and repetitive. And I think that to be able to say something out loud is so empowering. And I
Mhm.
love to give this little task to little girls because they write some of the most beautiful things on their post-its. And I I love that. So
Yeah, that's great. I love that so much. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think this is a perfect segue into no matter where a woman's at in her journey of being able to figure out, it's like, what does it actually mean to love your body? How you can transform your mentality, because we're on the same page. That it's like anybody listening to this and that knows what Mob Mentality podcast is about, it's about completely transforming your mindset and not being stuck in short term, but it's like, how do we create a lifestyle just overall? So great conversation. Thank you so much.
well, thank you for having me and allowing me to have a platform to talk about this. Thank you.
Of course, this is great. And I have your website linked down in the description. So anybody that wants to connect with Rachel can go to the website and also check out the book.
Yes, it's on Amazon. Thank you so much.
Perfect.